Welcome to another episode of Multifamily Monday. My name is Jesse Greer, and I'm the Vice President of Multifamily and Investments at Avis & Young here in Northern Nevada. And today, like always, I have a very special guest with me, Darren Maddox from BCM Services. Darren, thank you for joining me today.
You bet. Thank you, Jesse.
Yeah, so it's interesting. We're doing a multi-part series in regards to seller financing or alternative financing, just due to the fact that the lending environment is so tough right now. And the goal in putting together this series is to have the right professionals in the right places to get you the services you need to protect yourself either as a lender or even as a borrower in today's environment. Mm-hmm. So today we're going to talk about builder's control, and we're also going to talk about different escrow options that come with builder's control and why it's important not only for, the general lending community, why they use it, but also why maybe private money lenders and even borrowers, and to that extent contractors, would think it's important. So Darren, I'd love to hear a little bit more about you and what BCM is.
You bet. Thanks, Jesse. Darren Maddox is a CPA by trade. That's my foundation. I have a CPA practice here in Reno that does forensic accounting and business valuation work. And that's where I found out about builder's control. Yeah. I had a client who was in the middle of a lawsuit. They had to go to court and they were actually suing their contractor. Oh. And the process had builder's control involved with it. And I was amazed that when the attorney sent me to the builder's control company, which is the predecessor to the business that I purchased and created, they had all the records for this construction project. They had every single receipt, every single lien release, every document related to the cost of building this project.
Sure.
When I decided to open my own practice, I decided to start doing builder's control services. As an accountant, the process of keeping track of invoices and keeping track of costs in such detail.
Sounds like it came natural.
It came natural. It's what we do as accountants.
Yeah.
And to see that somebody was doing this and that it was an actual product that people used and needed, I thought it was wonderful. I didn't understand everything at the time.
Yeah.
But I created this builder's control process through my accounting practice. In 2012, the state required me to separate that.
Okay.
And become an actual escrow agency and an escrow agent, licensed, bonded, and insured as a separate entity.
And that'll play an important role later down the conversation. We'll explain why in a few.
Okay, perfect. And that process was to help protect the consumer, because Correct. Unfortunately there were some unscrupulous folks doing builder's control back in the time where we led up to the Great Depression in 2008, 9, 10, and 11.
Yeah.
So I decided to get that escrow license and establish this business called BCM Services that provides builder's control services.
So what is that?
Builder's control services, also known loosely in the industry as voucher control, is the process of holding money for a construction project and dispersing that money as the project progresses, and not only in line with the project as it is progressing. So call it percentage of completion. If the project is 10% complete, we don't want to have 50% of the monies dispersed to the parties building the project.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Otherwise, you can get behind. And that's exactly what happened in 2008, 2007, 8, 9, is monies were dispersed 50% on a project. And when everything started collapsing, people would go out to the project. Maybe it was a home development or something.
Sure.
And they were 50% dispersed on 5 houses, and they were still empty lots.
Fascinating.
And they were gone. The contract
the money's
was gone
with
the
it.
money's gone.
Yeah.
And no sales, yet they can't pull the money back. There's nothing there. So all of a sudden, it's over dispersed by far in that case.
So when you think about builder's control, you
Yes.
think about being, you made this comment earlier, the Switzerland
Yes.
of all the parties. Now,
Yes.
who are all the parties?
Well, as Switzerland, I think a more formal term is the third-party fiduciary.
Yep.
I sit in the middle. I don't have an advocate for either or any of the sides, and there's generally 3 sides. The parties are the owner, the contractor, and a lender if there's a lender, and that can be private money or financial institution, B of A, Heritage
Sure.
Bank, etc.
Which is more common when you think about the financial institutions. In fact, all of them require a builder's control of some sort.
All of them require builder's control of some sort.
Absolutely.
Many of the larger institutions have their own internal builder's control.
Okay.
Locals do not.
And that's really the crux of the conversation and why we're talking about builder's control, because when you think about it, if we're expanding into more alternative financing or seller financing or any type of financing that requires private money, I feel unfortunately your services aren't really that well known, and they need to be known because you're protecting all parties, and that's why we're here right now.
Yes, they need to be known, and hence the introduction in my initial story, which was we were involved with a case that had builder's control. I was able to go look at those documents. But I've also, in the 11 years that I've been doing this, and fortunately or unfortunately, I see both sides.
Sure.
As a forensic accountant who does litigation support, I see the people who did not choose to use builder's control and who are now involved in litigation.
Yeah.
And the fees that they pay me to then recreate all this and do all this are done so at a rate that's much higher than the fees for builder's control.
Absolutely.
And it's extremely expensive, and it comes with an attorney, possibly 2 attorneys, court cases, etc. So I don't like to use the term pay now or pay later. I prefer to look at it as an insurance policy.
Absolutely.
And it truly is an insurance policy, and all the parties don't realize, and many times the owners don't realize that this service is out there and how valuable it is to them.
Well, what's fascinating is when you think about, for example, the borrower's perspective, right? If you're a borrower, 9 times out of 10, you're paying for this service, right? Because you're the one receiving the benefit of the proceeds.
Correct.
But what you don't realize is this actually benefits you as a borrower as well, because of the fact that if you're getting private money lending, you want to make sure the funds are there to pay the general contractor as each phase completes.
Absolutely.
So what you're doing then is taking the funds from the private money lender as an example, and you're saying, you know what, I need all of those in my escrow account to make sure that we can fund this project for you, Mr. Developer or borrower, right?
Correct. Absolutely correct.
Okay.
That's part of the insurance policy. Good contractors, good lenders, and good owners realize the value of knowing that the money's there.
Okay.
And that they'll get paid, contractors, they'll get paid when they do the work and provide the paperwork, as agreed from day one.
I see.
We're all in agreement on day one. Lender, owner, contractor, and myself.
Now talk to us about that. Is there a formal contract that's put together that you review and you basically agree upon, or is that just kind of like the promissory note or deed of trust? I mean, what are you looking at here?
Yes, there's it's an escrow agreement or a builder's control agreement, and I am very adamant about having that agreement done at the very beginning before I receive funds, which is a requirement for me from the state. It's an escrow account,
Okay.
So I need to have something in writing. And my concern is how I disperse the funds. Okay? It's easy to send money to me.
Okay.
It's difficult for me to give it away.
I see.
I can't release it unless I'm following the terms of the agreement. So yes, we have an agreement ahead of time. For construction, we are very clear about having a budget from day one. And here's the budget that the bank agreed to, if there's a bank, the contractor has agreed to, and owner has agreed to. And that's our roadmap.
I see.
And all parties know from day one when we meet that that's the roadmap I'm following. And if we go over, we need change orders and we need specific paperwork signed by all the parties. It's very transparent what we do with all the parties.
Fantastic.
But if plumbing, if the plumber, the general contractor submitted a bill to pay the plumber, we go out and we inspect, do physical inspections every time there's a request.
So I'm going to stop you real quick there, because
Yeah.
I think that's a very important aspect of what it is that you do. So you're not only taking in money, you're not only dispersing money, but you're actually going out to the sites to verify that the general contractor has completed the task of which they're trying to get funds for.
Absolutely.
That's huge.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's one of the most critical parts.
Yeah.
Because they can say that the work has been done. I can see invoices from a plumber, but that doesn't stop collusion. That doesn't stop the work not happening. We physically verify, myself and my team of inspectors go out to every project, every draw, and verify that what's being requested has actually been done. That's one important factor.
Which is huge, because when you think about it, even as a lender or the borrower, or let's say the developer, right? If you're contracting a general contractor now, you're keeping the general contractor on the straight and narrow. So
Absolutely.
every single party by your third party, I guess, Switzerland,
Yes.
as you would call it, or third-party fiduciary
Yep.
is really staying above board,
Absolutely.
which is fantastic.
It's just full transparency.
Okay.
And where it benefits everybody is we go out there and we identify based on our physical inspection and what was being requested and what's been requested to date, a percentage of completion of the project. Okay, that's one of the golden tickets the lender wants to see.
Absolutely.
Are we 50% complete? How much have we dispersed? 60%?
And where are we at within
we
that
can't
budget?
do that. Our
Yeah.
loan to value percentages are going to get thrown off. That's number one.
Fascinating.
And number two is lenders and owners are very concerned with the fact that all the lien releases, vendors, material men, laborers have been paid. And when they're paid, you get a lien release. So we hand out checks every 2 weeks.
Okay.
And when we hand out checks, we do a trade. Give me a lien release, I'll give you your check, plumber or electrician. Boom.
Fantastic.
Now we have a lien release. They can't lien that property. The bank is happy. They're not going to get pushed into second position from a mechanic's lien.
Okay.
The owner's happy because they know the people working on their project are getting paid and they won't lien their property. So that's kind of the one of the bigger benefits that the lender sees is the fact that somebody out there who knows what they're doing is inspecting the property and they're getting the lien releases proof of payment.
Fascinating. So, another interesting point that I consider where Darren's services really come in from just a knowledge base is the fact that if I'm a borrower / developer, I go out and I get financing terms, right? And I talk to a general contractor. I could also lean on you a little bit and say, hey, do you think these general contractor pricing is a little bit high based upon what you've seen? Because you see all the numbers.
Absolutely.
And granted, you're not going to give a specific value because everything's going to
No.
fluctuate by project, but you can say, hey, you know what? You're within the realm of what I'm seeing, or hey, you're kind of high here. Go back and see why electrical is so much higher than what we're seeing.
Absolutely. And we do that.
That's
That
huge
is-
right
that
there.
is a service that we provide to
Yeah.
lenders. And where it comes into play is if a lender is working with a new contractor.
I see.
Hey, we've never worked with ABC Construction before, and they've come in with this budget. Would you take a look at it, Darren? Well, why are they asking me about that? Because I disperse approximately $100 million a year.
Yeah.
Okay. That's how many projects? However many projects in a year. That's,
Yeah.
50,
That's a lot of knowledge
50
right
projects a year. We have 50 budgets
Yeah.
in our pocket for every year to look at. And what we do is we report back to the lender and we tell them, hey, yeah, grading looks a little high, plumbing looks a little high. We don't do it on specifics.
Okay.
We're not qualified to go out and give bidding on a
Exact
project.
numbers, but
But I can say, seems high, seems low, and then the bank can go back. And I'll give you a great example.
Yeah.
A great example is owner-builder, okay? A contractor who borrows money to build his own project that is either an investment or it's for himself.
Okay.
Okay? And maybe it's a very skilled contractor. Gentleman's been around for a long time.
Sure.
Well, he has a backhoe. He's going to do his own grading. He's going to dig his own foundation.
Yeah.
He's going to do his own framing. So when I look at the budget and I say, there's nothing here for grading. Hey, bank, go check with him and see what he says about his grading because I don't see anything. Check what he sees about framing. Framing, there's no budget in here
Yeah.
for framing. And then they contact him and they talk to him. Oh, he's doing that part himself. Got it. Or say it's a plumber who became a general contractor.
Sure.
There's nothing in the budget for plumbing. He's doing it himself. That's his original trade. Cabinet maker,
Fascinating.
etc. So we can do that. And that is a service we provide because of where we are. Just like doing inspections, we provide that.
So early in the conversation, you mentioned that you require, or at least really want to see the contractual agreement beforehand, based upon what the total funding is, when the disbursements are, and the different points of progress along the way. Right?
Yes.
Is this document something that you provide to individuals? Or
Yes.
Okay, so
Yep.
you do.
So it's my document that is generally created from the owner and the contractor's builder's agreement.
I
Their
see.
construction agreement,
Okay.
which has a budget attached to it. I won't touch anything. We really don't get involved until, if there's no lender, we don't get involved until the owner and the contractor have agreed on the price.
Fascinating.
And then if
Okay.
there's a lender involved, they're the same way.
Sure.
They won't get involved until a contractor has signed a construction agreement with the owner with a cost breakdown already established. And we would get involved at that point, right when the lender closes their escrow for funding. That's where we get involved. Those monies come into our account and then we work with them.
Got it. So, we spent a lot of time talking about the benefits of this service specifically to developers, lenders, general contractors. Mm-hmm. Now, what you do, there's other aspects of it. Let's briefly touch on that before we end the video here. But it sounds like in addition to the builder's control, for construction, it's also great for maybe TIs, maybe a cash holdback.
Yes.
So talk to us about what do you mean by TIs and cash holdbacks, and how does that benefit, I guess, sellers or buyers or lenders?
You bet. TIs, also known as tenant improvements. If somebody, let's use a professional, a dentist or a plastic surgeon, they find a building that they want to lease, but it used to be a real estate office and now they're going to turn it into a dentist office. A lot of work needs to be done, a lot of improvements, a lot of plumbing, a lot of x-ray machines, different kind of things that are needed for a dentist office versus a paper pushing real estate office, if you will. Those TIs will have a substantial cost. As the building owner who's leasing this property to a tenant, I don't want the tenant to start doing TIs and then run out of money or not pay the people doing the work. It's my building. I have title. Now a mechanic can somebody can put a lien on my property, and I had nothing to do with it. It was the dentist, but the dentist decided to move out of town or not open up business. So there's all sorts of legal requirements and a process where, as the owner, we can help them step out of their responsibility for that work. It's a transparency type of thing, but it is legal. It's by notifying everybody and letting them know, I'm not going to be responsible if you sign a contract with this dentist to do the work, etc. But that then puts the worker, the contractor, on notice. I need something to make sure we get paid, and that's where we come into play. I'll do your work for you, and since I don't have the ability to lien the property because I'm signing that away to the owner of the building, then I want to make sure that money is sitting in an account and being controlled by somebody who will pay me when I do the work and provide my proper paperwork, and that's us.
And in that particular scenario, does the owner count on you as well to make sure that the general contractor has the appropriate license and bonds before they even start, or is that their responsibility?
That's generally their responsibility and proof of, it's generally the owner of the building's responsibility to do that. We'll help with it because we understand every step of the way. We will help with every part of the process if need be, because there are unsophisticated owners and there's sophisticated owners. And some like to keep that in their control, and some want nothing to do with it. They just want to have something stamped that they can hand their insurance company, and they can make sure that everything is covered. So we will help from the easy process of just holding the money and doing disbursements to the whole step of the way. What paperwork do you need to file? Here's an attorney we work with who will come in and help you file that paperwork and make sure your rights are covered.
Got it. And briefly, before we end here, we talked about cash holdback, and I think this is extremely important because even in traditional sales, right, where you might have a multifamily or an office or a retail in contract, but let's say there's a major structural component, we'll call it an HVAC system, right, that needs to be replaced, right, or a roof replaced, whatever it might be. You allow the transaction to complete and the buyer to buy the property with that kind of being pulled out. And this is where your escrow services come in. So talk to us a little bit about that.
So again, I mentioned earlier, we are licensed escrow agents. We're an escrow agency, bonded and insured to the levels as required to have in the state. But oftentimes there'll be a commercial property and the roof needs to be replaced. It has a leaky roof or it's just bad, and the seller agrees, yes, I'm going to go ahead and replace that roof. Well, the buyer says, okay, if we're going to close escrow tomorrow, I want to make sure you replace that roof. It's January, you're not going to do it in January, so you're going to do it in May. How do I make sure that that gets done? Let's put the money in escrow, and BCM Services will hold that money until they're notified by both parties that the work has been done. And when they're notified, they can release the funds.
Fascinating. And that's a huge point right there. And I think another point of clarification that's important is the fact that you work hand in hand with other escrow companies as well. So,
absolutely.
So you can have a traditional escrow with a traditional escrow company, and basically if that aspect of the cash holdback needs to be a part of it, and the escrow company typically doesn't like doing that. So they work with you.
Correct. And I think the best way to understand that is people refer to escrow companies as escrow companies. Well, they're truly title companies.
Fair point.
I won't name the names off, but in the West Coast, and East Coast is different than West Coast.
Yeah.
Not everybody
More
understands
attorney-based.
that. They're more attorney-based. Attorneys do title, attorneys do escrow. But in our location, in Reno and in Northern Nevada, actually and in Las Vegas too, we do work in Las Vegas, title companies issue title policies, and they do escrow services as a convenience for that title policy, for that title work that they do. But they are title companies, and then we can do escrows for after to allow them to close a project.
Okay.
And we work with all the local title companies daily.
Yeah.
On transactions.
Fascinating. You know, we covered quite a bit in this video, and I know there's a lot more that we can discuss,
yes,
right?
Absolutely.
So that being said, anyone that has any additional questions about what we talked about, Darren, how do they go about getting a hold of you?
You can get a hold of us online at www, or I guess that's not important anymore, bcmservices.com. You can call us at 775-682-4388, or you can contact Jesse and he'll tell you how to contact us.
Absolutely. And we'll put the information on the video as well. That's not a problem, you know. So, Darren, thank you again for joining me today.
Absolutely.
Fascinating conversation, and I think it's a very pivotal part of, you know, what we're discussing with the whole seller financing, traditional, non-traditional financing. So thank you again.
I agree with you. Thank you, Jesse.
Fantastic.